He has spoken on the topics faith, family and freedom in Cuba, Belgium, Brazil, Congo, UK and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J. Lauren Norris.
It's amazing to me that sometimes people who are great communicators, persuasive in their speech, persuasive in their talking, are also perceived as great leaders with great intent, with great direction, with great vision. And people will follow them because they are articulate, well-spoken, and seemingly intelligent. Let me help you understand these are not always the same. While being a great leader demands great communication skills and should be something that you as a leader focus on mastering, someone who has a natural gift of gab and the ability to articulate ideas isn't always a great leader. Sometimes their intent is dangerous. That's what I'm going to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.
I'm J. Lauren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and one of my clients told a story recently of walking through the zoo with her grandmother when she was a kid. And her grandmother was pointing out the various animals and based on the sign that was in front of the zoologist expert's rendition of this is the creature, this is the critter, you can see it with your own eyes. Here's what the label is, the scientific name, and then what everybody calls it, and that kind of thing. And Grandma pointed out, she said, look, honey, those are the panthers. To which the young girl looked and replied, no, Grandma, those are not panthers. Panthers aren't black, they're pink. Panthers aren't black, they're pink. Well, where would you come up with such a notion? Well, she'd been watching the Pink Panther cartoons, of course. And in the Pink Panther cartoons, panthers are pink. A black one may appear from time to time, but that particular panther was pink, and her understanding of panthers were pink. She was communicated an idea, a perception, a thought that said, if it's called this, then it must look like this. Now, we've seen in the last, decade or so, a preponderance of things that are called one thing and they're actually another. Labels that have been misplaced. I believe Princess Bride, is this where this quote comes from that says, you keep saying that word, but I don't think it means what you think it means. That notion is not just a cute turn of phrase. It's intentionally misleading. I mean, the idea of using a phrase to say something that it does not mean is not accidental. There are some people who do it out of, frankly, ignorance by its truest definition. They simply don't know that they don't know. Like my friend who used the word live in it all the time. The real word was livid. He didn't know the word livid. He would always say live in it when he was really angry about something, when he was really expressing his frustration or exasperation. And it's common that people hear a word in a given context and the definition or the meaning of that word is implied. And it's very common for people to hear that word and assume that they know what it means because they haven't taken the time to look it up. Insubrious is a word that is that the right word? Is that the way he said it? Insubrious. I've never heard that word before. I've heard insuperable. I've heard other words similar to that, but insubrious that was a new one on me, and I had to look it up because it was used in a list of adjectives by a very articulate man with an English accent, which of course gives him a whole lot more authority because he sounds like he knows what he's talking about, and he has a big, bold voice and his own radio show, so obviously he's an authority. And he used to be an elected official, an appointed government official. And he's done some pretty extravagant things in his life. And so obviously he's well learned and he knows what he's talking about. And so the use of this word in the string of adjectives that he used, I had to look it up and go, what does that even mean? Here's another word for insubrious. Malodorous. Malodorous. Malodor. Us. Okay, let me see if I can boil it down one more time. Insubrious means it stinks. Now, when you use a big word like insubrious, people think, well, you must be super intelligent. You must be way more intelligent than I am. And maybe the case. It may just be that you've learned that one word for the purpose of leading people to believe you know, think, and understand things they don't know, think, or understand. See, being a great leader does require that you become a great communicator. To be able to convey ideas that you might hold, things that you might discover, vision, direction, goals, and objectives. All of those are things that a leader is responsible for, things that a leader must be able to transfer to bring about transformation, to get them from inside your heart and inside your head into the lives of the people that you intend to influence. You must be a great communicator. A leader who cannot communicate won't lead long. They won't lead far, and they won't lead many. Now, I do hold very strongly to John Maxwell's philosophy. It's a whole lot more important to lead leaders than to amass followers. On all of my social media together, I might have 20,000 followers. I'm okay with that. Because with the ones with whom I engage directly, there's a significant amount of influence and transformation in their lives. Those people that I spend literally hours a month on the phone with, on Zoom calls with, pouring into them, not just communication skills, but challenging their ideologies, challenging their philosophies and their worldviews. When I spend 6 or 8 hours in a day coaching, sure, I'm helping people with story and how to dissect a story and how to re-articulate a story in a more effective way to transfer the data and the information that you want to convey. But I'm also challenging, how did you come to the conclusion that that's what that story means? Will that transfer to other people? Will the meaning, will the point, will the objective also bring about change in someone's life that's positive? Is the philosophy that you hold, the philosophy you intend to transfer into somebody else's life, is it legitimate? Is it well-founded? Is it well-lived experience? See, one of the things we find with people who are skilled at communication is that sometimes their skill at communication grows up in an echo chamber. It grows up in a vacuum. It's not a theory tested outside on the world. It's just an art form that they've mastered. I've seen people paint beautiful paintings. Some of them are called impressionists. Some are called new art or kind of freeform art. And an impressionist generally paints something that doesn't look exactly like real, but at a distance, with an open mind, you can see exactly what they were painting. You recognize those are people, those are buildings, those are rivers and creeks and streams. But maybe you've seen the guys on the side of the road. We have some of these paintings where they use a spray can and pieces of cardboard and filters and flames, and they create this beautiful abstract work of art. And it's shiny and it's glossy and the colors are powerful. And you might think that you're seeing the sunrise on a distant planet, because that's what it looks like. But the landscape that you're observing, you've never seen anywhere before. It's not reality as we know it. It's reality as perceived by the artist. That's fascinating when you're talking about a painting, whether it's a spray can painting or a hand painting or a digital art piece. That's kind of cool to get inside the imagination and the minds of the artist, the creator. When you see someone like a Stephen King create something with the pen and the paper where there's no imagery except what they conjure up in your own imagination, you understand this is a masterful communicator. This is someone who can cause you emotionally and in your own mind's eye to visualize things you have never seen before in your life. With just a little bit of description, I remember Frank Peretti talking about seeing this creature that would remind one of a troll crouched on the top of a lamppost looking over the city, with the sulfurous odor coming from its nostrils every time it breathed out this gold fog that seemed luminescent in the dark, its eyes beaming red as it watched everything that went by. It crouched like a crippled old man on the top of this light pole until finally it spread its wings, massive 12-foot wide wings of leather. And as they popped in the wind like a kite or a flag on a windy day, it dove down and landed, putting its talons through the head of the person at the microphone, stirring up their mind, poking their heart, provoking their thoughts. And that's a very picturesque use of words, an image that perhaps you've never actually seen before. You've never seen what looks like an enormous bat grab hold of someone by the top of their head, breathing smoke out of its nose and fire out of its eyes. You've never seen that before, but you can imagine it. And the artful use of words in communication can be used in exactly that manner, to describe to you what you've never seen before. And while there's a lot of art in that, there's a lot of power in that transfer. The ability to take someone from reality into imagination. Wow, that's a powerful, powerful tool of communication. And when it's not anchored to truth, it's a powerful form of manipulation, a powerful form to move somebody from reality to imagination, like dystopia. Perhaps you've heard of War of the Worlds. Perhaps you've heard of 1984. Perhaps you've heard of these ideas where people fantasize and they imagine what the world would be like if. And if they're masterful communicators, they will also kind of drive people into the conception that this is not reality now, but it's reality coming. That's exactly what a good leader does when they describe a vision. A vision that you kind of got to believe before it comes, because it's faith, the substance of things hoped for and not yet seen. Your faith is a very powerful thing. Belief, intrinsic ideas, intrinsic motivations, faith, belief, and those things all kind of intertwined together, and they're both provoked, invoked, and evoked from inside the soul of a human being through the means of masterful communication. I want this both to be a caution and a warning, as well as an inspiration. I want you to understand, as a leader, one of your primary objectives is to become a masterful communicator. As a follower, as a participant in this life, as a sojourner through this experience we call life, I want you to understand that to be a student of a masterful communicator, one must be a steward as well as a student. Understanding that while you're listening to the masterful communicator, while you're listening to some of their greatest techniques, I actually own the book by Stephen King on writing, and he has phenomenal insight into crafting powerful words in sequence to drive the ideas and the emotions of another human. I also think that some of his intent, some of his ideological worldview doesn't quite line up with mine. Does that mean he's not skilled at what he does? No, that's not what it means at all. What it means is that as a leader, I've got to be able to dissect the two. I've got to be able to know where the craft stops as a form of art of communication and the messaging or the narrative or the intent of the author begins. As a student of great communication, as a student of leadership, as a steward of the influence you've been given, the influence that you have in this world around you, you have a similar obligation. And that is to dissect that very fine line between great communication skill and the intended path that the leader will take you on. If the leader has a great heart and a great mind and great intent and the best interest at heart for you and those around you, then their communication skills may be in the making, so to speak. Maybe still in their infancy, in the incubation period of great communication, but the heart of the leader is right. I love the way John Maxwell says this same thing. He says, nobody cares what you know until they know how much you care. If you start first with how much they care, then how they articulate what they know, that can be sussed out over time. You can spend time as a student of a leader, of a communicator, getting to know their heart and their intent, to figure out their path and their vision and where they want to take you. Where is this journey going to lead us? It's worth investing in that, even when their communication skills are maybe a little bit left to be desired. I've had many a conversation with people that, frankly, they sound like the ones that the media targets when they want to make fun of a certain class of people. You know, the ones that got that deep Southern accent, and maybe they're missing a tooth or three right in the front, and they sound like Forrest Gump was their high school teacher. And the media likes to stick a microphone in their face and ask them complicated questions that they don't really got no answer to. And you might presume that someone whose communication skills have never been focused on, never been trained, someone who's never been intentionally taught to communicate, to articulate, that they would be of lesser intellect. There's an old phrase by Winston Churchill that says, don't mistake my kindness for weakness. There's also a great understanding that not every great communicator is a great leader. And not every great leader is yet a great communicator. And when you understand that those two things are like the Black Panther and the Pink Panther, your comprehension, your perspective on life, your ability to be persuaded, hopefully it's abated just a little bit. It's filtered, it's gated. Your ability to be persuaded may sit behind the communication skill and say, what is the real heart of this leader? Let's talk about their genuine intellect. Do they know things? I tell a story often. One of my discoveries of what I didn't know that I didn't know. In my journey to make my own t-shirts, I was failing miserably. And I tried with people who make t-shirts professionally to get the insight that I needed. I tried new transfers and new t-shirts and a new heat press and invested, and I wasted and I had no good results. Everything I made looked ridiculous. Finally, I called the manufacturer of these expensive heat press transfers that you can't buy 5, 10, or 12 at a time to practice. You have to buy 1,000 of them. It was a significant investment. And after wasting about a dozen of them, I was a little bit ticked off. And I called the company that I bought them from and I said, look, I just want my money back. And the guy who answered the phone on the other end Sounded like that guy the media would target to ask the questions. And when I told him I just want my money back, he said, "Do you have any of them left?" I said, "Well, yeah, I do. I want to return them and get my money back." He said, "Well, let's try one more." But he didn't say it like that. He said, "Well, let's try one more." And I said, I don't want to waste anymore. I said, you just got to trust me. Turn that press on, turn it all the way up as high as it'll go. We're going to put this t-shirt transfer on there, but first you got to preheat the shirt. And he went through this whole thing, but the first most important question he asked me is, "Did you pop and stretch it?" I said, "Did I? What's it?" He said, "Did you pop and stretch it?" I said, "No, I don't know what that means." See, it turns out that his wisdom, his knowledge, his experience, his professionalism in that one question, "Did you pop and stretch it?" sounded like, communication-wise, this guy's clueless. He can barely utter a sentence. And yet, in asking the question, he revealed my ignorance. A great speech and a great speech giver do not make a great leader. A great leader should endeavor to become a phenomenal speech giver, a phenomenal speech writer. But I can tell you, there are many politicians that you can't trust as far as you can throw them with a broken arm, who have ill intent for you, who have incredible speech writers. I've even met some who are incredible speech givers with great intonation and great inflection. Some of them don't believe a word they're saying. They're just reading the teleprompter. Some of them have no intent whatsoever that life would turn out better for you at all. They couldn't care less. They want your vote. They want your money. They want your power for themselves. And they will say whatever the research has told them you want to hear to get from you the things they want. It's not necessarily about making your life better. It's not necessarily about doing things for you. It's not necessarily about leading you to a better place or a better time or a better opportunity or to better transformation. That's not what they're after. What they want from you is your vote, your money, your power. And they will say whatever's necessary to get it. I hate to say they're liars, but ducks quack. Sometimes the best written speech, it's designed to manipulate. It's written to provoke. Its only purpose is to enrage you at one group of people and soften you toward another. Whether there be truth in your vitriol or not isn't relevant. Not to them. What they want is your reaction. To write a check, to raise your voice, to stomp your feet, to throw your hands in the air, to protest, to riot, to sit silently by, to wait till it's over, to not engage, to not get involved, to be silent. Sometimes the whole purpose of the speech is one of those two things. And sometimes the purpose of the speech is designed to provoke one crowd and silence another at the same time. And a well-written speech can do that. Yeah, this episode was provoked by someone that I was listening to with their grand, eloquent words and their perfect intonation and timing and intensity, and they delivered their message so well. Just happens to be that I know that about 80% of what they said was hogwash, proven lies, researched, evidenced, disinformation. But they said it so convincingly that you have to believe what they're saying. There are people whose lives have been shattered by this evidence. Wink, wink, nod, nod. It's not really evidence. It's a declaration. It's an intonation. You should be upset about this because I said so. Not because it's true, not because it's provable, but because it's in the speech. Yeah. And a great speechwriter and a great speech giver can manipulate masses to do things that they otherwise wouldn't do. for boredom, for provocation. They will react in a way that's way outside their nature. They've been lied to about why they should react. They've been lied to about how they should react. They've been lied to about reacting at all, but it's beside the point. The response to the reaction will be the same. Swift, indelible. Does that make a great leader? No. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So perhaps by a speech of that caliber, you've been influenced. You've taken action. You moved. You voted or didn't. You spoke up or didn't. You remained silent or you acted out because of a great speech. A great speech writer and a great speech giver. And sadly, on many occasions, they don't even believe what they're writing. They're writing it because they want to provoke. As a leader, you're responsible for becoming a better communicator. If you're a great communicator, I challenge you to be a great leader as well. Use that gift for something good, not just the power to speak in front of people, to persuade them, to manipulate them, and to gain influence and money. But do good with what you've been given. You will be held accountable for it. I'm J. Lauren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Lauren is a master teacher on storytelling, and I learned so much. I'm really going to have to sit down and go back through everything, and I think I might have to have some more coffees with Lauren, but it was totally worth my time, and I really highly recommend it if you're looking to grow your ministry, grow your business, grow your career. Lauren will serve you well.